Okay, now let's talk about how we're going to apply these dimensioning skills. There we go. Thank goodness it didn't change on me. Okay, so standard symbols define requirements and they remove ambiguity. For example, what do you think that symbol means? Nothing. I just made it up. So don't use non-standard symbols. Okay, non-standard symbols don't help because they have no defined meaning. And yes, you can define your non-standard symbol, but like, okay, there's a joke I've heard about fantasy books, like fantasy books. And it goes something like this. Okay, and it says like how good the book is, and then the number of made-up words. And initially it might increase, but then it sharply decreases. Because seriously, you're calling something different. Okay, I get it, you want to be all fancy, but that's a sword. Or I get it, you want to be all fancy, but that's just a horse. Don't call it some other crazy word. So the reason we don't use non-standard symbols is not just because, well, one, people don't know what they mean to start, even if you add a definition, but two, because there's probably a symbol that already does what you want. And if it exists, why are you reinventing the wheel? Okay? Why are you reinventing the wheel? Now, this won't always be your job. It's usually the responsibility of the design engineer, designer, or drafter, the one who's making the drawing. However, just for your own sake, you should be the one who is saying, I want you to not use non-standard symbols, because maybe you're the one who has to read the drawing, and it's a pain in the butt if you have to figure out what all these scribbles mean every single time a person sends you a new drawing. So push for this. Make sure that people are sticking to the standards. Okay. Now, GD&T interpretation is a matter of looking at the applied symbiology and reaching the one correct understanding. Here's the very important thing. The most important word. One. One correct understanding. There should be one way and only one way to actually read your drawing. They should be able to say, well, you could build it that way, or he might mean this. If that happens and you're the person who's building a part, stop right there. You go to them right away and you say, what did you actually mean here? Because this is not correct. There is more than one way for me to interpret this. So request those corrections, okay? Request corrections. And always, always, always assess risks associated with unclear requirements. It might not be your job to make that drawing, but if there's an unclear requirement, you have to assess risk of that. Like, is it worth it to send it back to the engineer to get them to fix it, rather than sending it off and having it possibly not work? You don't know. Like, for example, if I tell my son to go get a tool, like, son, can you go to the cabinet and grab my hammer? I'm not too worried about him coming back with the wrong tool. If he does, he's 3 years old. I'm fine with that. I'll just go get the wrong tool. So the risk of him messing up, it's pretty high. But what am I going to lose? Not much. However, if you have unclear requirements and you send it off to a tooling engineer who designs a particular tool just for that part, just for this, technique or this new product, and it turns out that they created it incorrectly because you were unclear, you might have wasted thousands of dollars. That's not good. Okay? You waste a whole lot of money. So, now, there's only an ability to understand when dimensions and tolerances are in compliance with applicable standards, okay? I'm not, hoping at least, that you'll have an ability to guess meaning. While that would be a really cool superpower, it's not going to be useful. Because most people don't have that, and so we shouldn't rely on that. Okay. So from all this, another thing you have to remember is you're going to have to learn how to discuss things with others, okay? You're going to have to be able to understand what they know and be able to explain what you know so they can learn from you. You also have to realize that the people you're working with don't necessarily have the same capability that you do. If you've got an apprentice, their level of understanding is low, okay? But if you're working with the elite of the elite, I mean the guy who's been there like 20 years, the woman who's been there for 20 years, well, they know a whole lot. So make sure you know who you're talking to. Also, always be able to explain what you have done and why. If you don't have a reason for why you did something, that's bad. There should be a reason for everything you do, okay? And the last thing, and I'll give you a short anecdote here, is understand other people's expectations. So here's my short anecdote. So one summer, I had an internship with NASA. It was absolutely fantastic. However, they never clarified what their expectations were of me, and I never really asked them if I was meeting those expectations. Now this is partly my fault and also partly their fault. But at the end, I get to the end, I've worked really hard, and I say, like, I'm really enjoyed this, I'm hoping I can work with you again in the future. And they said, oh, probably not going to happen. We're kind of disappointed with your work ethic. And I was just shocked. I was like, wait, but what? And it's because they never explained to me that I wasn't meeting their standards. I never asked if I was meeting their standards. And I could have given more time or put more effort in, but I thought I was doing a good enough job. So don't be like me and don't be like them. Make sure that you explain to others what you expect of them, and make sure that you understand what others expect of you. Okay, so, sorry, one last thing. When we're doing our calculations for these classes, there are some math calculations. And if we do it properly, it's going to allow the maximum amount of part variation while ensuring the proper function. Remember, those larger tolerances are going to typically reduce the part cost. Also, please do not assume tolerances. If it's not shown, and there's no other way for you to know what it is, go and ask. Go and ask what the tolerance should be. Because then you might have liability otherwise, and it will lead to higher part costs. So, that's all for this time. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you all soon. Have a great day.